You know that feeling when someone invites you out and your first thought isn't great, but more like, how do I get out of this? Or when Friday night rolls around and everyone's making plans, but you're genuinely excited about staying in with a book, a show, or just nothing in particular. There's this moment that happens sometimes. You're at home, you're comfortable, and then you remember you're supposed to meet someone in an hour. And suddenly, this wave of exhaustion hits you. Not physical tiredness, something else. The thought of leaving your space, putting on your outside self, engaging with the world, it just feels like so much. If you felt this, you're not broken, you're not antisocial, you're not lazy, you're just wired a certain way. And today we're going to explore what's actually happening in the minds and hearts of people who genuinely love staying home. Not people who are avoiding life, not people who are depressed or stuck, but people who have discovered that home is where they genuinely feel most alive. This is about understanding yourself, not fixing yourself. Let's dive in. When most people think of someone who loves staying home, they picture someone sad, isolated, maybe a bit lonely. Someone who can't go out rather than someone who doesn't want to. But here's the truth. Many people who prefer staying home are living rich, full, engaged lives. They're just doing it differently. Think about it this way. Some people recharge by being around others. They get energy from conversation, from crowds, from stimulation. These are often the people we call extroverts. But others recharge by being alone, or with one or two people they really trust, in their own space, on their own terms. They're not avoiding life, they're protecting their energy so they can actually enjoy life. There's a big difference between isolation and solitude. Isolation is being alone and feeling bad about it, feeling cut off, disconnected, like something's wrong. Solitude is being alone and feeling good about it, feeling peaceful, restored, like you're exactly where you need to be. People who love staying home, they're usually seeking solitude, not isolation. Here's something most people don't realize. The outside world is loud. Not just in terms of sound, it's visually loud, socially loud, emotionally loud. When you're out in public, your brain is constantly processing faces, voices, movement, social cues, expectations. You're navigating spaces, making small talk, reading the room, staying alert. For some people, this is fun. It's stimulating in a good way. But for others, it's draining. Their nervous system is picking up on everything. Every interaction takes energy. Every environment demands adjustment. And home? Home is the place where you can finally turn all that off. The lighting is familiar. The sounds are predictable. There's no one to perform for, no one to read, no unexpected demands. It's not that homebodies hate people, it's that they're highly sensitive to stimulation, and they need a space where they can regulate that. Home is where they reset. People who love staying home are often labeled as antisocial, but that's not quite right. They're not against socializing, they're just selective about it. They'd rather have one deep conversation than 10 shallow ones. They'd rather spend quality time with 2 people they love than be in a room with 20 acquaintances. And honestly, that's not weird. That's just knowing what you need. Think about someone who loves staying home. Now think about how they are with their best friend, or their partner, or their sibling. Chances are they're warm, engaged, present. They're not incapable of connection. They're just intentional about where they invest their relational energy. And when they do socialize, they often do it at home, because home is where they feel safe enough to be themselves. Let's talk about what's happening inside the brain and body of someone who prefers staying home. First, there's something called your baseline arousal level. This is basically how activated your nervous system naturally is. Some people have a low baseline. They're naturally calm, maybe even understimulated, so they seek out excitement, noise, social interaction. It brings them up to a comfortable level. Others have a high baseline. Their system is already fairly activated. So adding more stimulation, more people, more noise, more activity, pushes them into overload. Homebodies often fall into that second category. Their brain is already busy. They're already processing a lot internally. So staying home isn't about doing less. It's about not doing too much. There's also something called dopamine sensitivity. Dopamine is the brain chemical tied to reward and motivation. People with lower dopamine sensitivity need more stimulation to feel good. They're drawn to novelty, adventure, new experiences. People with higher dopamine sensitivity get their dopamine hit from smaller, quieter things. A good book, a familiar routine, a cozy corner. They don't need fireworks to feel satisfied. Neither is better. They're just different systems. Humans are wired to seek safety. That's not weakness, that's survival. And for a lot of people, safety isn't just physical, it's emotional, psychological. When you're in a familiar space, your brain relaxes. It knows what to expect. It doesn't have to be on high alert. Home becomes a sanctuary not because the outside world is dangerous, but because it's unpredictable. And unpredictability, even in small doses, takes energy to manage. This is especially true for people who are highly sensitive or who've experienced anxiety, trauma, or burnout. Home becomes the one place where they don't have to brace themselves. Here's something beautiful about people who love staying home. They often have incredibly rich inner worlds. They think deeply, they imagine, they reflect, they create. While extroverts might process their thoughts out loud through conversation and interaction, introverts and homebodies often process internally. They're not doing nothing when they're alone, they're organizing their thoughts, working through emotions, exploring ideas. Some of the most creative, thoughtful, insightful people in history were homebodies. Writers, artists, philosophers, inventors, people who needed quiet and solitude to do their best work. Their inner world isn't empty, it's full, and it needs space to breathe. There's this idea that if you're not out experiencing everything, you're missing out. FOMO, fear of missing out. But here's the thing, homebodies often don't feel that fear, or if they do, it's faint, because they're not missing out. They're opting into something else. They're choosing rest over hustle, depth over breadth, presence over performance. And when you really think about it, what are they missing? Small talk with strangers? Crowded bars? Obligatory social events? They're not missing what matters to them, they're protecting it. There's a quote that goes something like, "You can do anything, but you can't do everything." Homebodies understand this intuitively. They've chosen their anything, and they're okay with letting the rest go. Even though staying home feels right to them, many homebodies carry guilt. They feel like they should want to go out more, like they should be more social, like something's wrong with them for preferring their couch to a party. This guilt often comes from outside messages, from a culture that glorifies being busy, being social, being out there, but also from well-meaning people. Friends who say, "You never come out anymore." Family members who worry. Partners who want them to be more adventurous. And so they start doubting themselves. Maybe I am being too isolated. Maybe I am missing out. Maybe there is something wrong with me. But the feeling of being home, that still feels right. So they're caught between what feels true and what they're told should be true. It's exhausting living in that split. Now, let's be honest. Some people who stay home a lot are lonely. Loneliness and solitude can look similar from the outside, but they feel completely different on the inside. Solitude is chosen. Loneliness is not. If you're at home and you feel peaceful, content, engaged with your own thoughts or activities, that's solitude. If you're at home and you feel empty, disconnected, like something's missing, that's loneliness. And it's important to know the difference, because they're not the same experience, even though they might look the same to everyone else. Some homebodies are deeply content, others are deeply lonely, and some are both at different times. The complexity is real. One thing homebodies experience that's hard to explain to others is how socializing can feel like performance. When you're out in the world, there's an expectation. You're supposed to be on, friendly, engaging, entertaining. And for people who are naturally introverted or socially sensitive, that takes work. Real work. It's not that they can't do it. They can, they do, but it's tiring. Imagine putting on a costume every time you leave the house. Not a physical costume, an emotional one, a social one. You're playing the role of the person people expect you to be, and when you get home, you finally get to take it off. That's why home feels so good. It's the only place where you don't have to perform. You can just be. But here's the confusing part. Sometimes they actually enjoy the performance. Sometimes they have fun out there. Sometimes they come home thinking, that was nice. And then they still don't want to do it again for weeks. It's not that it was bad, it's that it took something from them, and they need time to refill. There's one more layer we need to look at, and it's important. Sometimes staying home isn't a preference, it's avoidance. Sometimes people stay home because they're afraid of the outside world, because they're depressed, because anxiety has made their world smaller and smaller until home is the only place that feels safe. And from the outside, this can look exactly like someone who just loves being home. But on the inside, it feels different. There's a difference between "I love being here" and "I'm afraid to leave." There's a difference between "this is my choice" and "this is my prison." And sometimes, people don't even realize which one they're experiencing. They tell themselves they're homebodies, when really, they're stuck. This isn't a judgment, it's just another part of the truth. Not everyone who stays home is thriving. Some are hiding, some are hurting, some are both.
Let's paint a picture. It's Friday evening. Most people are getting ready to go out, making plans, meeting up with friends, going to bars, restaurants, parties. And the homebody? They're relieved the week is over, not because they can finally go out, but because they can finally stay in. They make tea or pour a drink. They put on comfortable clothes. They settle into their space, and there's this feeling, this quiet satisfaction, like everything is exactly as it should be. They might read, they might watch something, they might work on a project or cook something, or just sit and think. To someone else, this might look boring, lonely even, but to them, it's perfect. This is the life they've chosen, and they're not settling, they're not hiding, they're exactly where they want to be. Here's something people don't talk about enough. Social hangovers. You know how after a night of drinking, you might feel physically drained the next day? Tired, foggy, slow? For homebodies, socializing can create a similar effect, except it's not physical, it's mental, emotional. They go out, they have conversations, they engage, and maybe they even enjoy it. But the next day, they feel depleted, like something was drained from them that needs time to restore. It's not that the socializing was bad, it's just that it took energy, real energy, the kind that doesn't come back quickly. And so they retreat, they cancel plans, they go quiet. And people don't always understand. But you had fun yesterday, why don't you want to do it again? Because fun doesn't mean free. Even good things have a cost. People talk about comfort zones like they're bad, like you're supposed to constantly be pushing beyond them, challenging yourself, doing things that scare you. And sure, growth happens outside your comfort zone, that's true. But what people forget is that comfort zones exist for a reason. They're not prisons, they're home base. They're where you rest, where you recharge, where you remember who you are. For homebodies, their actual home is their comfort zone. And that's not a weakness, that's just honest. They know what feels good, they know what drains them, and they've built a life around what works. Does that mean they never leave? No, most of them do. They go to work, they run errands, they see people they care about. But they return, always. Because home is where they're most themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. Here's what people on the outside don't see, how rich the inner life of a homebody actually is. While others are out gathering experiences, homebodies are processing them. While others are moving fast, homebodies are going deep. They're reading books that change how they see the world. They're thinking through ideas. They're creating things, writing, drawing, building, learning. They're having entire conversations with themselves, working through feelings, reflecting on their lives. From the outside, it looks like they're doing nothing. From the inside, they're doing everything. Their life isn't small, it's focused, and there's a difference. Homebodies have a different relationship with time than most people. For many, time is something to fill, something to spend, something that moves fast and needs to be packed with activity. But for homebodies, time is something to protect, something to savor, something that moves at the pace it needs to. They're not rushing, they're not cramming, they're not trying to maximize every moment. They're just being. And that takes time. An afternoon at home isn't wasted time, it's the point. A quiet evening isn't boring, it's restorative. A weekend with no plans isn't empty, it's full, just in a different way. So here's what we've explored. People who love staying home aren't broken. They're not antisocial, they're not lazy or scared or missing out. They're just people who figured out that home is where they feel most like themselves. They're protecting their energy, honoring their needs, living a life that feels good from the inside, even if it doesn't look impressive from the outside. And yes, there's complexity. Some carry guilt, some experience loneliness, some blur the line between preference and avoidance, but most are simply living according to their own wiring. And in a world that's constantly telling us to do more, be more, go more, there's something quietly powerful about saying, "No, I'm good right here." If you're someone who loves staying home, I hope this helped you see yourself more clearly. You're not weird, you're not wrong, you're just you, and that's more than enough. Thanks for being here.